My name is Cheryl Mathis with Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative, and today we're going to talk about adapting math. So I have two people with me, Miss Stephanie Kidd, and she is the math consultant here at KVEC, or one of the math consultants, and we have Miss Heather Hall, who is from Kentucky School for the Deaf. So we're going to talk about some strategies you can use in your classroom to help your students who may have some issues and may need just some adaptations to get that math concept. Alright, so let's go ahead and just start out quickly with a few things that I have before Miss Stephanie comes on and shares. So the first few things that I have are balloons. Now I think these are pretty awesome for kids who have issues with motor skills or something like that, or maybe issues with motivation. So these are balloons. Most kids love balloons. So I was thinking for counting or mathematics, in terms of addition, you could do 3 orange and 2 blues for a total of 5 balloons. Very inexpensive way to get math or even subtraction in. Of course, you can blow these up to all different sizes to make it appropriate for your students. Another thing I love to do with these, which really makes it fun for the kids, is to put soup beans or pinto beans in here, dry of course. Don't put them when you're after you've cooked them, but it just gives them a little bit of a jingle. So that might create some interest for your students, especially those students who have some pretty severe needs. So love this idea. Another idea that I have is Velcro dots. So these are pretty inexpensive from Amazon. So what I did on this card is I put 2 of the rough-sided Velcro dots, and then I put 2 of the soft-sided. So I thought this might be interesting for kids maybe with a visual impairment or something like that, so they can feel and understand that part whole piece. So they have 2 rough, 2 soft, for a total of 4. Of course, these are just simple index cards. They're pretty inexpensive, and also the Velcro dots are inexpensive. So very good for subitizing, which I'm sure Stephanie will talk about here in a little bit. Another thing that we have is bringing some science into the lesson. So these are little worms that I think come off of Amazon. So I thought this is good for counting, maybe categorizing, things like that. You might could even add 3 orange and 2 red or something like that. They have that texture on them. I love that about them. And they're rubber, they're plastic, so they're pretty easy to clean as well. And then I'll show you something else. Sometimes I think we forget to give students reinforcers. So this is probably one of my most favorite reinforcers, and it's that silly putty. So you can get this for like $1 or something at the Dollar Tree, but kids really love to play with this. And so usually what I'll do is work with the students for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes depending on the student's capacity, and then let them play with this for maybe a minute while I'm resetting up my next activity. So it occupies the kid, it gives them something to work for and something to look forward to. Now, in the day we live in with germs and things like that, I would probably put each student's name on the top of this, and that student would probably be the only one that would get to play in their specific jar of putty. And of course, if they go homesick or something like that, then you kind of have to trash it. But this is a good thing just for reinforcement that you could use occasionally. Of course, you can also home make this. That's a great activity for the kids, and you can print out recipes online for students to home make this. Just another activity. Alright, so now Stephanie's going to come over and share a few more of her activities with us as we progress. Alright, take it away, Miss Stephanie.
Okay, so several of the activities that we're going to do with our kids, and she's talking about subitizing, I like to use dice, and I want to use dice that have different colors on them so that they can actually see the contrast if you're working with a student who has visual impairment. The other thing is you can always put a little bitty glue dot on them or a sticky dot, and they're able to touch that dot, feel that dot, and see that dot for subitizing. Now, if I'm working with subitizing, the the thoughts are that I want to quickly see that image, and I want to think about that as how do I see that image. So example here is I've got 4, but it is 2 and 2. That's how I see it. I see 2 across. You get to understand how that student actually maybe visualizes things. So this would be an example of a child who would go this way would be horizontal learner. A child who's going this way would be a vertical learner. So they would see this one. A child who sees 3 and 2, of course it's going to be real quickly a horizontal. And then this could be a vertical if they see it this way.
Okay, good. So, and I have a question about that, Stephanie. So if I was planning on making these for my classroom, I see you have this little grommet in there. So where would I get those, and about how much would I be out?
These are really cheap. So this is just cardstock. And so I just printed these off, and they're online for free. So that's even better. And then here, this little grommet, I think you get like 100 of them for $2. So this is really, really cheap.
So could I get those from Amazon or Walmart?
Amazon, Walmart. Yeah, Walmart has them. So
craft
that's where we
section.
got those.
It's awesome.
Another thing that we like to do for Subitizing so they start to see that image is, as you can see here, I've got 5, but I've also got the image of 5 as the dice would have it. So that is what I want my kids to understand, that first of all, this is the quantity, and then here is the symbol. So I'm going to always start with the quantity first. Don't ever start with just the symbol, because that's going to confuse our kids. We want them to understand, like, this is 6. We want them to see that's 5, and then start introducing that symbol.
Okay. Sounds good.
So another thing that I can do, cheap, quick, some cardstock for just some paper and laminate it. Here's the number, and then if you get on over here, you would see we've got the words to them. And I want them to be able to put these together. And then of course this is tally marks. And then on top of that, the tally marks is I've got the 10 frame that match. These are quick and easy, and what can I do if I've got a student who's got a visual impairment? I can put a dot on there of glue. That's quick and easy. I can also, like Cheryl said, the Velcro. Putting Velcro on there, it's a bigger thing than they can actually do that. Yeah. So that's wonderful for our kids.
Yeah, and one thing I would think about too with these cards is if you're making those structured task boxes, is you could do some matching activities with that. I would probably maybe do them a little bit smaller, but you could have the kids match. So that's 3, of course, and then this is 3, and somewhere, okay, here we go. So I could really see just putting this on just a regular maybe sheet of laminated paper and having the kids match, okay, which ones work together. So which one represents the 3. So you've got the word, you've got the tally marks, and you've got the 10 frame. So I think that would be a very good independent workstation activity.
And if you really want to get the student to be able to feel things and those kind of things, these wonderful little wiki sticks, you can mash them right down on there. They can actually go on top, and it makes a great little bump. So they feel that, and so they'll actually be able to see where that's at.
Awesome.
All right.
So, and then these wiki sticks, I would suggest if you don't have any in your classroom, maybe ask your OT in your district. That's a staple of an OT that they would have. They also come in different colors. They're kind of sticky, so they can be used and reused for lots of different things. So that might be a good little piece of material you can get for your classroom pretty easily.
Another thing that's a material that you can get really easily and very cheaply is beads. So beads is a really good thing for us to use, and I like these beads because if you look at them, you only need 2 colors. It doesn't have to be red and white. That's what we suggest. But on this board, that white's actually hard to see, and I would prefer that would be on a black board instead of a white one. But that's okay. In this case, you can have the students just to move, and in that movement, they're also bringing that to their mind. 1, 2, 3. What I like about this one is it's a 5 and a 5, so they start to see that 5 and 1 is 6. They see 5 and 2 is 7. They see all of this as they're working together with it.
Yeah, and with your low vision kids too, you can also have different sized and different shaped.
Absolutely.
That will give a texture to know that there's 2 different, instead of different colors, I know there's 2 different types of beads.
Yeah.
So that will work too.
Yeah, and so
we could do this in stars and this one in circles.
Yes, and that way they can feel the difference and understand.
Yeah, and so I think you could use just a piece of packaging material, maybe a box or something you get from Amazon. This is more of a foam type board, like a thicker piece of construction paper. You can get this at the Dollar Tree for $1. But you know, if you're really looking for economics, I think just going down to the office and asking for some of those brown boxes. Another thing I think you could do with this, if it's brown or white or not the color you're needing, you could always take one of these, and I'm about to tear it up, but take one of these index cards behind it to make that contrast of color. And then, of course, you could also get the bigger beads and the different shapes like Heather said.
Yes. Another thing is for especially your visually impaired students, they love music. So what you really want to think about is how can I get some sound into that room.
Awesome.
So if you're thinking about Subitizing, these are pretty cheap at Walmart. They're great in the baby section because babies love these because they make a lot of racket. And so this is a wonderful way. What did you hear? I heard two. What'd you hear? And they start to do that. If you don't have one of these, guess what? Any container really works. So you can do this one. Do it again. And you just ask them what did they hear. So it's really good to have that contrast that's going on in around your room. Also, listening skills are developed that way too. So if you're having trouble with a student who's needing some listening skills, have them to do some of these activities, and you're bringing in the math with it.
Absolutely.
And you can adapt this for kids with hearing loss by using a flashlight.
Yeah,
A flash.
Awesome.
Yeah,
very inexpensive.
Or those little bitty lights, those small lights that's real quick that you can just turn on, turn off. Yeah, those are great.
Now, Stephanie, would you have the kids reproduce that maybe with their foot or their hand on their desk or a surface?
Or a clap.
As well?
Just a
Awesome.
clap.
Okay.
So that's another way to do that. One of the things that we do a lot in elementary school is use 10 frames. And sometimes 10 frames can be a problem, but like I said, using the wiki sticks, whatever I did with the wiki sticks.
Here we go.
Alright. Using the wiki sticks, you can actually put the wiki sticks around the 10 frame. So now it creates a bump for that student.
And if you have a kid that's got visual impairments that's in your classroom, you can also take a hot glue gun
Yes.
and create their own personal one that they know be able to tell the texture difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would definitely use, if I had a student who was in my classroom for this. Another thing I did for a visually impaired student, because they couldn't do the beads there, was I used perforated golf balls and I created them their own bead string. So that's something else that they can do. But this one here, and I would of course do the inside, and that allows the student to make sure that when they're putting these in, they're getting them inside that area and they can't come out. So I want them to see that.
Yeah, another thing
Well,
I think.
actually, feel that.
Feel that.
Yeah, and another thing I think you could do if the child really loves SpongeBob or Stone Cold Steve Austin, something like that, I think you could really get stickers or print some things off the internet to make maybe this side Stone Cold Steve Austin and this side SpongeBob, or whatever the student likes. And so to bring in that interest, and I think you could also use some holiday things with that too. So just to increase the students' interest.
Yeah, you can get these in different colors, as you can see here, red, white, those kind of things. This has got gray on it, but you can get these in all different colors, and or just the chips that are color-coded chips. So, and those are great for when you do probability later.
Yeah.
But if you do probability with a student and you're needing them to find different textures on there, you can always put different types of lines. So you do a cross on a couple, or you do just a straight line on some, or you do a circle blob on some, and then they've got the texture that they can feel if you're doing probability in a bag.
Absolutely. Now, Stephanie, if we don't have any of these spongy things, I know they're pretty inexpensive, and where do you get these? Is it Oriental? I think I ordered
The
some.
cheapest place that I found those is Oriental Trading.
Okay.
So,
So if you don't have these, could you recreate something else?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe just cut some, I don't know, SpongeBob's out and make a circle or whatever. I think the key is that they can fit in your 10 frames. Is that
Yes.
correct?
yes. We took, another thing that you could do is, they have those yard sale, the yard sale dots.
Oh, yeah.
You can just put those on something for that.
Awesome.
It's a little bit, this has been laminated, so this is not
Okay.
going to work. But if you just leave it and not laminate it, you can actually feel that yard sale,
Absolutely.
the little dot there.
You could also outline one of your reds and maybe put an X on your
Oh,
yellows
yeah.
so that I can tell the
Yes.
textural difference in the text.
It's a great idea. So would you do that maybe with the glue gun, you
Hot
think?
glue gun, I
Yeah.
think, would do good.
Yeah, and
Especially if you're having a kid that's in your class most of the day, this is materials that they can be set aside for them to go and use.
and can be reused.
And can
And
be
the thing too about a hot glue gun at Hobby Lobby, you can get those glue guns that release a smaller amount of hot glue. So I think that would even, help you to stay on your dot and do it a little bit neater. I think those are about $15 or something.
Yeah.
Textures is a big adaptation for some kids with visual. And you don't have to have a vision loss to do that too.
Absolutely.
Some kids really work better just using touching
Tactile
and
learners.
tactile learners.
Yeah,
so that's a good way to do that.
Perfect idea.
Okay, let's talk about our hundreds chart because that's another big thing for our students. And as you can see, I just basically blew one up, but you could get this to be much bigger. You could use a larger sheet of paper and have it larger size. But for our kids who struggle, money is a big thing for our kids, for many of our
Absolutely.
kids. So they have so much trouble with actually learning how to count the money, the coins and stuff. And once they get familiar with the coins, what I like to do, and I say, and I want to use Heather as an example here. Heather, what is this?
25 cents.
So it's a quarter, right? It's a quarter and it's 25 cents. Where would I put that on my hundreds chart?
Would find 25.
Uh-huh.
You can do it, Heather. Good
So
job.
we found 25. Now, Heather, I see this one. How much is it? Is that 25 again? And she's
It's
going to touch it
25.
because she knows that what's around the edges, Heather.
It's rough.
So we're going to talk about all of that with our students. We're going to make sure that they know that. And so, Heather, where would 25 more be on that chart?
25 more.
It's a toughie.
So this is exactly what our kids are going to do. They're going to count up 25 more. And that's fine because when we're getting there, we want to talk about this and we want to let them have that experience with it. And so she's putting it on the 50. And I'm going to say, so Heather, what do you know about 2 quarters? How much is that?
If this is 25 and I add more, another quarter, then it ends up on 50.
Awesome. And now, look, you've got a nickel. And this nickel, does it have a rough or a smooth edge?
It's smooth.
Okay, so where would that be? Now, we know a nickel is how much?
A nickel is 5 pennies.
Oh, it is 5 pennies. So where would it be now? How much money do I have if I have that nickel in my...
If I add this to that,
And so, see, now she knows she has 55 cents. So this is an easier way for our students and they don't feel so worried about having to look at that 25 and remember that's 25 and then it just becomes some numbers I'm putting down on the page and trying to add up and I may not be ready for that, but yet now I can count money without having to worry about
Awesome
that.
news.
The other thing is, what I really, really love about this is we know that nickels are 5. So now we're starting to count by 5. So 5, 10, see how I'm covering that up? 5, 10, and then 15, 20, and they start seeing that and they're automatically getting into that understanding of 5s. So I like that. Dimes the same way. They start just filling up this side and they start seeing that dime as 10s. And we're counting by 10s. And they don't even realize it sometimes that they're counting by 10s or even that they're counting by 5s when they're doing this. The big thing is when you change from dimes to nickels and you kind of push them together, they have trouble sometimes remembering what they need to do there. So we want them to make sure that they understand that this is a nickel and that it's smooth around the edges and that a dime is not smooth around the edges. I've got these in my little pack here, but they're not smooth. We got to talk about all those things for our kids because that tactile is so important for them.
Absolutely.
Okay. Want to add anything else?
Well, one thing I want to just say is I think these activities, many of them would be really good for work tasks or work boxes. And then we know that in primarily our FMD units, we have paraprofessionals who do lots of things with our kids. And so I think a paraprofessional could maybe watch this video and help prepare some materials as well as incorporate those materials with the students. So I think this might just give you a few fresh ideas to use with those students and that your paraprofessionals can use. We have awesome paraprofessionals and certainly don't discount using those for students.
So this part of ours is just a book, and I will show you how to use the 10 frame here in just a second for our students. But this book I created for 1 is a snail and 10 is a crab, and it's just basically an adaptive book. We can use it with colors, we can use it with many different things. So we can actually have a little sticker there or a Velcro dot there that says what color is this and a little task card that goes with it, and they could pick out the color for that if they're wanting to work with colors. But this is 1 is a snail. What I did was, this is just a piece of yarn. This is just 1 bead. And here is a Velcro dot, and these, I just printed them, laminated them, and they're here. So one is a snail. The student can pick up one snail, or it can pick up a number, because I've got those too, and they can put that there. And this book can be very versatile in that room, because now I'm working with, do I do quantity or do I do number? I can talk about colors. I'm also getting that one-to-one correspondence here with this. Same thing with two. Two is a person, so I find the person, I put it there. I've got the two correspondence. I can do the same thing over here with two. I can put dots down here if I need to, or just some glue, hot glue gun, which I did over in here. I actually used a hot glue gun, and I put on each little foot. So when they're counting them, they can actually feel that hot glue. And then on each of the feet of the crab. And then down through here, what this book could really be used for, and what I love about this book, is I can start counting by two. So I'm going to do that skip counting. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So then I've got those down through here. And I would go ahead, and then what happens from 20 to a crab, that's 10 feet. So I go from 20 to 30. And so we can start seeing that.
Awesome.
And like I said, it's just a bunch of Velcro, which is pretty cheap on Amazon, actually.
Absolutely. I think I got 1,000 pieces for like $10 or $12.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. Pretty
So they're
inexpensive.
laminated. Now, with this one, this is just a board. And it's basically a cork board, but you could use just a piece of cardboard. You don't have to have that. What I did with this, and I wish I had brought and didn't, was a dry erase marker. Did anybody bring a dry erase marker?
I don't think I have.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it. So let's say that my equation that I want is 2 crabs and 3 insects. So I've got 2 crabs and 3 insects. Now, I could start talking about parentheses and grouping things together. What's the same here? Well, the crabs are the same, but they're going to stay inside of a parentheses. What's the same here? Well, the insects are the same, so they're going to stay inside of a parentheses. So now I'm talking about grouping. How many crabs do I have? I have 2. 2 times, how many legs does each one of those crabs have? 10. So 2 times 10 plus, because I want to know how many legs, 3 times, how many legs does an insect have? 6. So then I'm going to be putting that together. Now, if my student's having a lot of trouble with understanding those numbers, I know this is 10, I'd put a 10 dot here, right? Down here I'd put another 10, or I could go ahead and say 10 plus 10 is 20, and then 26, and then how many more? 6 plus that would be. And so I would just add these all together, and they would come up with the answer at the end. And that's what I would want them to do.
Awesome. Very nice.
Any other things I should add for this?
I like that.
I like that.
Great idea.
So
And again, making them tactile when you can.
Yes.
The dots, the glue dots on the legs so we can feel them.
the other thing I did was I put this here, and that's so that my students could, if they needed to, they could fill up a 10 frame with it too. So back here, this is really important because I want them to build 10 on here, not just fill it here. I want them to build it. One thing I did miss was if I'm comparing numbers, and I put this down here and I line these up, guess what I can see? That 7 is 1 smaller than 8. So they can start to see that too.
Excellent.
So this is just one quick way, and this becomes a center. I mean, this becomes a center in itself, and there's so many things. And for those students that are LI are usually in a group that's 3 through 8th grade, we've got so many different math opportunities in that room. This can actually flow through the whole lesson.
Absolutely.
And every child can use it.
And even really into the literacy component and the science component. And of course, there are other books that could be adapted very easily. So I would suggest using what you have. Also, there are some adapted book websites that we can share to do that. That things are already completed for you.
There's many more. The next one that we're actually working on is Equals Mequal, and that's a great one that we can do. One More Dino on the Floor is another one, especially if you're working with numbers 1 through 10, and you're wanting them to understand how to add to or to take away from. That one goes through the whole subtraction up to 10 and addition to 10. So I really like that book too.
Yeah, and it could bring in the student interest with the dinosaurs as well.
Yes. Excellent.
So lots of things for student interest that we have.
If you have a student who can't write, but you need to know if they know the numbers, this is really good. And it's just basically numbers. And I also want to know if they can subitize. So what I did was, these are really, really cheap. They're $1 at the dollar store, or the Dollar Tree. So as you can see, it's just number on a scrap sheet of paper I literally had. And on the dice, I just took a Sharpie. I mean, not the dice, look at there. I took a Sharpie and put on the clothespin the numbers that you would actually see on a dice, or the dots you would actually see on a dice, and then you just have the student put them on there. And so if you're working on that picture grass, which a lot of our students are,
Absolutely.
this is great. Does this one have one? No, so I can put it on there. This one has what? One. If you want to work on it in order, that's great. But if they can pick up another one and say, oh, that's 4, it goes here. Wow, that's really good. So just another way to have for students to do this.
Yeah, and I think that would be an awesome opportunity for a work box, for an independent workstation that students could pick up. They could put it together and then they could move it over. So I think that's very good that our students work independently some.
And they're working not only on the math concepts, but there is some OT
Absolutely.
work being done there where you're working with that pencil grip.
Absolutely.
So this is just matching, basically. They're matching that dot. So this one's got the true 3, where this one's straight, so it's a little bit of a difference for them.
Yeah, and I think that could be adapted as well for students who may not have the ability to use both hands together. So I think you could even probably go to the Dollar Tree and get maybe those picture frames or something like that, the acrylic ones that hold themselves up. So that the student can only use the one hand for that. So I think this could be adapted in a lot of ways. Also, I think you could even cut out a little hole here for the student to hold their hand in as they hold that. So lots of good adaptations that could be used for our kids for that.
Small clipboards too.
Yeah, small clipboards. That's an excellent idea. And then too, the color contrast, keep in mind that's definitely something you could use. Or you could use their interest if they love SpongeBob or something like that. I think you could incorporate that piece into here as well.
And you can make it as large or as small as you need it.
Absolutely. Very inexpensive.
Okay. Miss Heather, do you want to talk about your dice that you have there?
I have some dice too. These dice are raised, so if you have a kid with a vision loss, they can actually feel the numbers that are raised, so it looks like a regular dice. But it does have a texture to it that you get at Amazon. Not very expensive at all.
Awesome.
Now for some kids that have hearing losses, we work on sign skills. So we can incorporate sign skills along with math by working on the ASL sign for numbers. So these dice are fixed up with the ASL sign for each one of the numbers. So that's an extra step that you could do with the kids.
Awesome. Love that.
Do that. Again, Amazon, not very expensive.
Really love that.
For kids with a hearing loss, one of our big issues is that language is impacted. Because our kids hear they learn by overhearing other people talk. If you have a hearing loss, it's not necessarily something that's easy for you to do. Incidental learning is hard. So one of the big things in math is we have a lot of specialized vocabulary. All right, so we need to make that as visual as possible. We have an online resource that's free. My favorite thing, free.
Free is good.
And it is good, and it's got the terms we use in math, but it's also got visual representation so that they get the concept along with a picture in their head, which then helps them internalize that. So the ones that we have here, which we'll attach to the video so that you can have resources to it, these are kindergarten and first grade that we have already, but you can search online and there's tons of free material that will do that for you. So, you know, making sure those kids understand the unique vocabulary that's attached to math, and to know there's more than one way to say add.
Absolutely.
So building those skills, and that's not only good for the kids with hearing losses, that's good for all kids to know that there's multiple ways to figure out if you're adding something or you're subtracting, and it's different words we use to do that.
Awesome.
So.
All right. Do we have anything else, girls?
Yes, actually, she was talking about vocabulary. Let's just add this real quick. We've talked about using vocabulary in different ways, but the cool thing is you can relate it back to something like this circumference is talking about around the circle. It makes the C. So relating those back is a really good way for our students to be able to see that or to understand it. So this is like I said, I like to have a visual for all of our students, and her vocabulary words actually had great visuals with each one of them. So if you look at these, they're alike. They are the same, right? And means I'm adding them together and we're coming up to a larger quantity. So they start to see that. So making sure that there is a good visual with our math is extremely important, especially with the vocabulary. And sometimes even having a movement. So if I'm doing the word behind, I'm actually going behind, remember, behind.
Yes.
So I'm doing that movement that goes with it. Before we leave, many times we get stuck with not having a lot of middle school things. So this is a good middle school activity, and it's using something extremely simple. It's using a 10 frame. But if I'm having to teach proportion, and my kids are having so much trouble with it, and I always think about proportions because that's one of the things that seems so abstract to our kids. But this 10 frame, you can start to see it and you can start to build into it. So if I'm thinking of what is 20% of 20, and we know that of 20, that means that's my whole. So I think of proportions, I think of it as parts and wholes. And usually I think of, okay, of 20, I want to know what 20% of 20 is. So I'm just going to fill up this 10 frame. I'm going to do a fair share. That's what we call it. We fair share it. So I'm going to fair share 20 of these dice, or these counters, and people say dice. So if I fair share 20 of these, I've got two more things in here, don't I? I like the ones that click. I'm very partial to those. And my kids are not going to pay attention and turn those over, so I'm not either right now, although it's killing me. So I'm fair sharing 20, and I want to know what 20% is. Guess what? Here's 10, here's another 10, that makes 20. So 20% of 20 is 4.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
So there's a way for them to start to see proportions, and you can do this with different things. I mean, it doesn't have to be these. It could be teddy bear counters. It could be anything that you have.
Or it could be our worm counters. It could be that we had before.
Yes. M&Ms.
It could be M&Ms, or Skittles.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
If the kid is food motivated, that's a...
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know that I would use 50 though. That's a lot of Skittles and M&Ms.
Sugar.
Hey, you can use the mini ones. So mini M&Ms.
But typically though, if you have a student who's having trouble to process those kind of things, you're not going to use numbers that are really big. You're going to use within 20. You're going to make sure you keep it less than 50, because it's really hard for them to actually sit there and put that many counters out.
Absolutely.
But I want them to understand the concept behind it, so I'm not going to push those higher numbers. And I'm probably not even going to throw in decimals. I just want them to understand that concept.
Because we're matching where the kid's at to where we start.
Absolutely.
And we totally skipped something on dice, but some kids have trouble just holding on to them.
Absolutely.
So if you've got a clear container, and it can be any kind of clear container, I have begged your lunchroom. Because your lunchroom has these great containers that they put food in, and they're kind of smaller, but if you need a student who needs a bigger one, they're rolling it around, they're not losing it, it's right there, and guess what I can do? I can see through it to tell what the number is.
Yeah, and I think that could also be for students who put things in their mouth or something like that. I think even if kids have that motor movement within maybe just their foot or something like that, I think you could adapt that or put a handle or maybe even Velcro on it. You could probably even, if a student just had maybe the whole hand grasp, maybe do a sock or a glove, something like that, put Velcro on that and then on this so that the student picks it up and they can shake it just with that big grasp, because it'll catch the Velcro pieces together. So definitely I think that's a good motivational piece for that. All right, I think that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us, and give us some feedback. Let us know if this helped you in your classroom. So again, my name is Cheryl Mathis, and I could be contacted at Kentucky Valley as well as Stephanie Kidd or Heather Hall. Let us know if you need more information. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.